Hi, everyone. Today we are going to discuss the art of nurture, staying connected in a socially distant world. And I'm very fortunate to have three fantastic exemplars of that on the panel today. I would love each person to share your name, share your market area, how long you've been in business, and just the overall size of your company, starting with Gina.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gina Piper, founder of Elation Real Estate, which is located in Pleasanton, California. We service the East Bay area, and our office is 12 agents strong.
And then Donnie.
Hi, my name is Donnie Peworski. I'm the founder of Hero Real Estate in Tracy, California. We service the Central Valley and parts of the Bay Area. I have about agents, total headcount about 4.
Awesome. And then Jeff.
I'm Jeff Rosa, founder of Market Real Estate in San Diego. I've been in the business since 2004, and we have 6 agents on the team.
Donnie, you are somebody who really makes a point of building out your database. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. I think there's this concept in real estate of being a secret agent, and people are fearful of kind of being forthright about being in real estate. So we talked about just some of your most recent interactions, whether it's going to the coffee shop or even your most recent interaction with the Comcast guy. Can you talk about how you approach your day to day, and specifically around this idea of creating value, which is what makes it so easy to foster these relationships and gives it a path to start talking about real estate?
Well, I mean, my day-to-day used to be I used to hang out at the local Starbucks, right, and just have my coffee there, and I'd work there for a couple hours. I have my
Yeah.
laptop, wrapped, right? So, I mean, I wouldn't really like, people would walk
Yeah.
by and they'd see me there all the time, and eventually they start approaching me and start asking me questions, and then at times people actually would sit down and have conversations about real estate with me. So I'd be okay, and then at some point in that conversation, I would ask them further information. At that point, you've established kind of a rapport with them, and they feel comfortable giving you their information. So that's I'm always trying to build my database, like just like the Comcast guy that came by my place. He saw my shirt and he asked me a question, and then half an hour later he asked me another question. We started talking, and I said, "Hey, let me just get your information. I'll send you some info." And then I shot him an email, and he reached out to me a week ago and said, "Look, I'm thinking about refinancing my home. Can you help me out?" So I'm always looking for methods to try to not aggressively collect it, more of a kind of just a smooth way of collecting their information.
Mm-hmm. And there's value in that because, for instance, you had somebody that was in your database for what you said, 5 years, and you
Yeah.
were dripping on them, and all of a sudden they reached out. Can you tell that story?
Yes, I learned that a long time ago, right? So kind of like, I work for one of the top, teams for Coldwell Banker in California. And one of the things I noticed, the amount of transactions that were going through that office, they never really had a database to capture that information. So they spent all this money, $20,000, $30,000 a month, doing postcards, advertising at the mall, the shopping carts. They were basically everywhere. But when the market turned, the first thing they got cut was their marketing budget. And so that avenue went away. And I learned just a long time ago, just from all the conferences I attended, that the most number one reason why clients do not use the same agent because they don't stay in contact. And at the time, Client Direct through Carr offered this free newsletter. I had sold this guy, he was an internet lead. He was relocating from Arizona. I met him and his wife. I sold him a house, and I put him on that drip system. And every month he received an email from me just about the market. 6 years later,
Mm-hmm.
his wife unfortunately got really sick and she passed away from cancer. And he reached out to me. He said, "Hey, you've been doing a great job of just getting in contact. I really appreciate the communication." What's in one sense, I was like, well, I'm not really communicating. I'm dripping you. But he thought that I was actually sending him regular, having conversations with him. I said, "Hey." So long story short, reached out to him. I helped him short sell his home. I helped him, sell his grandma's house in Sunnyvale. So just from that simple thing and it cost me nothing to set up that Client Direct newsletter. I mean, it was a free product.
Cool. I think everyone on the panel would be very honest about their use of CRM. It was something that everyone very much communicated to me. And Donnie would Donnie is a very proficient CRM user. He implemented it very, very early on in his career and has consistently used it. Jeff, as somebody newer to the world of CRM, because I think that this is a huge part of in 2020 consistently engaging with your sphere, but agents struggle with this idea of implementing it. Can you talk a little bit about how the CRM has helped you work your sphere more effectively?
Yeah, so again, I wasn't a CRM user until recently. So my goal has been to put everybody in this database, and then I use the CRM to touch everybody in this database once a week. And I try to give them something of value and something of interest. So may talk about something interesting we have going on in the community. We may talk about properties we have on the market, or an interesting, a real estate question answered. And then in particular, we're really emphasizing reaching out to people and asking them if they need help. Right now during COVID and the precarious position that a lot of people are in, we are constantly reaching out to them and using the CRM as a platform to do that and offer our help and just stay in touch with people. And I think it's serving us well.
We are specifically around that topic. You all three have really good tactics I want to share with the larger group. Jeff, specifically logging notes in the CRM, so like information about people and how it helps you facilitate communication. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Before, I would literally have an Excel sheet or like a stack of paperwork, or I'd try to have you in my phone. Now with the CRM, I can know where you live, your email addresses, your phone numbers, your kids' names, your spouse's name, and then little notes about who you are. So I have this constant fear of walking down the street and running into somebody and not being able to remember their name. So sometimes I will even, if I know I'm going a certain place, I will just try to come up with a few names of people that I may run into. It's almost like practice, so that I know who they are when I run into them. My wife and I used to, she's really good at this. I would introduce my wife, Shauna, to this person who I already knew. And then she would kind of pick up the asking for their name, and I would play it off like I forgot to introduce them. It was kind of sad, but that was the reality I was living in. But the CRM has kind of helped me, know my clients better and know the names of people I should know the names of, when I need to know them.
So something that all of you do incredibly well is you have these newsletters that you put out. Donnie started with his CAR newsletter. Gina and Jeff, you have weekly newsletters that you do as well, or monthly. Gina, I'd love for you to share specifically your philosophy around newsletters, how you balance the personal with the business, and then some things you've included people respond to really positively.
Okay, so yes, I do a monthly newsletter. The top section is typically personal. So it's a personal story or something that I'm doing right now. For example, the one we just sent out a couple of days ago talks about how my father is flying in from Nashville, Tennessee, and it will be the first time that I've spent a Christmas with him in 30 years. And just from that, I get a lot of responses. People reply to the email and say, "Oh, we're so excited that you get to spend Christmas with your dad," or they'll ask questions. How often do you see them? Do you see him? So I get a lot of funny responses, but it's always personal in the beginning, and I think people really like that, and that's how. And oftentimes I engage through that way. So maybe I just got back from Yellowstone National Park, which happened a couple of months ago. So I shared that experience and got a lot of feedback from them. Then I talk about market. I always talk about all the cities that I service and the inventory now based on what the inventory was the last time the newsletter went out, because I find that interesting, and what's happening in the market. I talk about maybe just listeds or just solds or coming soons. And then at the bottom, I typically have a pet that can be adopted. As you know, I'm very big in animal welfare and rescue. So I typically have a dog of the month or a cat of the month that can be adopted, and that is of course clickable. And I do a lot of the videos. I do lifestyle videos for my listings, for my upper end listings. So I'll share those on my newsletter as well.
So there's something about blending the personal that makes these people that are on your email list feel more connected. Jeff, you actually shared something very similar, how you structure your newsletters, which I found really interesting. Can you talk a little bit about that? And specifically, I know you hit on it briefly, but the Thanksgiving giveaway that you were doing for the community, or kind of the grocery assistance too, that ties back into that idea of being that fixture in your farm?
Yeah, so my wife and I decided this year that we were going to try and, help a good number of families have a better Thanksgiving. And so we tried really hard to get the word out there that we were looking, to provide some gift cards to the grocery store for families. And in our newsletter, so we put it out a few different places. We put it out in like bulk mailing that we do to the farm. And then we also put it in the the weekly email that went out saying, hey, if you know of anybody, a family that could use a little extra help, please let us know. We're looking to help a few families have a special Thanksgiving. So just like touching on that, service to others first, like offering assistance to others first. Like, now we weren't doing it for, any particular benefit to ourselves by any means, but that's kind of the approach what can we do for others, and share that, and a willingness to do something for somebody else. So that would be, that's typically how we start our communications with everybody, no matter what it is. And it's interesting, like, we did not get a very good response in terms of like people responding to us and saying we would love the assistance, or we know of family that could use the assistance. So, but at the end of the day, people know we were offering it. And then when we didn't get this response, we felt really under the gun to go out there and actually deliver. So we ended up connecting with people at the church and school and trying to make this happen. I think we have in our family, we tend to do a few philanthropic things over the years, and it is very hard to find somebody to take something.
Jeff, I really appreciated when you told me that story, and how even though you wanted to give it, you wanted to showcase that you're being invested in the community, even after no one took you up on it, you still found a place or found a way to give the cards away. I think that's just like speaks to why your sphere of influence trusts you the way that they do. Donnie, I'm curious with you. I think one of the skills that you really have is this ability to not be so fearful asking for people's information. And can you walk me through, one of the biggest things you said is I'll make sure you're adding value. So for the agents that might be a little bit unnerved about the process of building out their database, the advice that you would have for them?
I guess, the process I tell all my agents, because, the one thing they're always worried about costs, right? And some of those costs are like, what's the CRM going to cost me? And I said, look, get a Gmail account. That's where I started. I used to put in my Gmail contacts, name, address, phone number, when they bought the house, when they got the loan. And the beauty about doing that is that, with Gmail, you can export that out into, a format that any CRM can import. So that's basically you're building your database, and you technically live in your inbox. Mm-hmm. So it's easy to categorize the information, and it's very low cost to do that. And I said, look, every month there is some sort of event going on. You would go and spend $1,000 to $2,000 buying Zillow leads when you can spend $100. And for example, for Valentine's, raffle off a Valentine's dinner. For March, there's, spring break, and there's, I don't know what else, but every month there's something going on. And the beauty about it too is that, it used to be like when before like this whole social media stuff really evolved, we would pass out, for Halloween, we'd pass out pumpkins. For 4th of July, we'd pass out flags. We do all that stuff to our clients. But now it's so easy to do on social media. If there's a new movie coming out, you can do a promotion for that movie, and you get such a huge response, and you also build your profile on Facebook and Instagram. You increase your following that way. It's a very effective, low cost way to not only, and I also use the social media programs to also keep track of what my clients are doing, right? Someone's kid just graduated from college. That could be a future home buyer. There's just all kinds of things you can track with Facebook.
How are you so comfortable asking for people's information? Like, how are you so comfortable asking for that Comcast guy's information, that their contact information? Can you speak a little bit to that?
I'm very comfortable. I just feel the conversation because, a lot of times, I've been doing it 16 years and we're always trained to be salesmen. I always try to close the person on the first time you talk to them. I moved away from stop trying to close them to building a relationship because it gets to a comfort level when they say,
Yeah.
hey, you feel good, I feel good. Can you give me your digits?
I think so just even if somebody's having a conversation, don't hold back, because over time it will help. It might lead to that contact that you drip on over the course of 5 years, who eventually
Yep.
responds and you end up doing several deals with them, like that one
Yep.
client of yours. Lastly, well, one of the last things I would like to hit on with all of you is we're obviously in COVID, we're obviously in shelter in place, and reaching out and connecting with your sphere has probably been more of a challenge than ever before. And all of you said some things to me that I thought were really interesting about how you continued sustaining your business now. Donnie, you, again, going back to that concept of adding value, can you talk a little bit about like how you created a COVID resource center on your site? As kind of a starting place for how you stayed out in front of your sphere while also creating value?
Right. So I have access to all these different websites that I pay yearly fees to, and I get a lot of inside information. So what I started doing is I built this site on my page. It was just called, slash help desk. And I started posting information, especially about mortgage forbearance programs, right? Really getting the information out there so that people would understand that be careful doing the mortgage forbearance, because if you do this, it's not like, hey, I can stop making my payment and I'm good to go in 6 months. No, it's like if you stop making your payment, not only do you have to pay that past due balance, but you also have to be current for 4 months. And that could be a substantial amount of money trying to rectify the situation. So that resource there, blasting it on social media and through my email list really was beneficial. I was able to have a lot of conversations with people during this time, right? We're on lockdown. People were calling me and we're just talking like, hey, I have this question about this. And my bank offered me this. I said, no. You want to hold off on that. If you can make the payment, I know you're going to struggle, make the payment.
Gina, I think we had talked about this and you said nothing about your business has really changed, or you've not really changed too much of what you're doing. But I think actually in this area, the fact that you have such a robust online presence probably has continued to serve you. It's been one of those things that have kind of foolproofed your business during shelter in place. So can you talk a little bit about the value of that online presence, what it helps do for you when somebody that maybe doesn't know you gets referred to you, and just that overall experience?
Sure. I think that when someone refers a client to me and they go online, they can be reassured going online that that was a good referral, because I'm very, very lucky to have a very large online presence. I have, I think, over 100 Google reviews. I do a lot of videos that are pushed out. My videos, in some cases, I think a couple of my videos have over 5,000 views. And those kinds of things, when you Google me, those things come up. So that's very helpful. And then oftentimes I have the opportunity to compete on a listing appointment. If someone just goes to Google and types in best realtor in Pleasanton or in the East Bay or real estate in the East Bay, I typically as far as agents, not necessarily companies, but agents, I'm usually the first to pop up. So oftentimes I get called on listing appointments from people I don't know, and it's usually the top 3 agents in Pleasanton that they're interviewing. So I have those opportunities fairly frequently. And I think even more so these days, because everybody's at home and everyone's on their computers constantly. And so my call volume has increased more so than necessarily my direct sphere of influence. And I believe that's probably as a result of what's happening in today with people being not out and about, but behind a computer screen and doing research that way.
We at Side are big believers in online presence. We try to help implement that as part of operationalizing individual agent businesses, but then also the larger partner business. Like back in the day, you never had to worry about somebody going online and doing a search for you.
Mm-hmm.
My mom's a real estate agent in Southern Virginia. People still pick up the phone and just call her because they operate like 15 years behind maybe. But here in the Bay, here in the Central Valley, you have to have a robust online presence, even for sphere of influence. So I found that really compelling when we chatted. And then Jeff, I'm a big believer in consistency when it comes to marketing. And I think that you had some thoughts about how that truly benefited you in the face of COVID, especially because of how interlocked your sphere of influence is with your farm. So can you talk a bit to that?
I kind of doubled down on marketing when COVID hit. I would say most agents in San Diego and in particular my area, they stopped existing as far as I could see as someone who gets mail from your real estate agents sending things to my mailbox. I think I can think of one piece of mail I've gotten since COVID started from a real estate agent regarding, a house for sale or what have you. So I doubled down on it, and I wanted to make sure that my clients and my sphere and my farm continued to hear from me because I knew that there was very little competition in those spaces. And I think that the consumer, they want to work with somebody who at least appears to know what they're doing and has the confidence to navigate an interesting time in the market. And I wasn't reaching out to people in many different forms, like asking for anything. I was, sharing what I always do share. Here's what we have on the market. Here's interesting, real estate questions answered. Here's, us offering assistance to whoever needs it. That's what we continue to do. So we didn't change our message, at all. Actually, we just kind of enhanced our message and reached out to more people that way.
Does anyone have any kind of final thoughts? I'm going to wrap it up, but that you want to share just about kind of sphere of influence, the part it's played in your business, and like your plans to continue to sustain that through COVID and post. Gina, do you want to start?
Sure. I would say probably the thing I would share is, and we talked a little bit about this, Ashley, is I do a fundraiser every year and have for the last 5 or 6 years. And it's 6 years actually. And it's gotten a bit interesting and a bit complicated because the last one we did, obviously we canceled the one in 2020. The last one that we did in 2019, I had 250 people at our home, which is too many people for our home. But it's a super fun event. And that one, I think we made $62,000 for Valley Humane Society. The part that gets interesting is that this does not go to necessarily my sphere of influence. They are all people that I know. I'm very particular that I don't want people in my home that I don't know. But people have gotten upset that they haven't been invited. And I've gotten calls throughout the year saying, hey, when's the next, it's called Party for the Pooches. When's the next Party for the Pooches? And can I get on your list? We really want to go. Or I've gotten calls saying, I heard you just had it and how come we weren't invited? So that part's gotten complicated, but again, I feel like it's a genuine, we're giving back to a community. And these are just really mostly, all my friends that are invited to this, but it's gotten so big. The mayor of Pleasanton is there every year, and city council members and lots of different city officials. So it's been a really fun event, and inexpensive because I do it at our own home, and I do catering and all that, but we're not renting an event. So that's really been, I think, it wasn't meant to be that. I think a lot of things I do, I don't mean to turn into business, but organically and naturally they do. And oftentimes I get a lot of calls from people that attended the event and said, thank you so much for all you do for the community. And will you come talk to us about selling your home? There was a school measure that a year ago, I think, or not even a few months back, that was up, and I endorsed the measure. It didn't get passed, but I got this random call about 2 months ago from someone that said, hey, I worked on that committee and I really appreciated you donating what you did for that, and we'd like to list with you. And I'd never even heard of them. And it was like, to me, that's such a big deal to have that type of involvement in community, because it will always come back to you.
That it goes back to that idea that people are comfortable with you taking on maybe the biggest financial transaction of their lives, because they can tell you care so much about the community, and they use that as a proxy to tell how much you're going to care about helping shepherd them through that specific transaction, through this very potentially like very highly emotional experience. So I think that definitely speaks to that. Like, people are using that community engagement as a proxy. Jeff, do you have kind of any final words or thoughts around sphere of influence that you want to leave us with, or that maybe I didn't touch on?
Yeah, I think it all kind of comes down to, for me, like serving others first. What can you do for others? Like being that resource for others. I really like it when people call me and say, hey, Jeff, I know you know a guy for this field, like, or can you recommend, a plumber or whatever it is. Like, I enjoy being that person that people come to asking for resources. And, and I have always, it's a good way to, by the way, like, build a base. You meet somebody and you talk to them about something, they need something, I'll get your information. So a side note there, but, being willing to do something for other people first, and that usually can come back to you. That's not why you do it, but offering something to others first tends to be good for business.
Jeff likes to consider himself the Angie's List of his farm for his clients, and of course, agreed, having that place of, again, it's come up several times, but creating value for people continues to return. Donnie, you're definitely, and I think Jeff and Gina would both admit it, like, far ahead when it comes to implementing different technical systems to make your business operate. They'll both admit it. Like, they were very honest on our call. Hopefully that's fine saying on camera. I'm curious, like, one, if you can like speak to that, like the value that's brought to your business, and then also maybe any other final kind of thoughts around Sphere, or maybe anything else I didn't hit on.
Well, I could tell you, yeah. I mean, I'm really technical. My background's in technology, so I'm almost like a robot, right? But I still do the low tech stuff,
Yeah.
right? Like, mentioned earlier that, I put everything into my Google contacts. I put their birthdays in there, and I use, the Google Calendar product, all the time. That's how I just plan my day. But the beauty about it is that those birthdays show up, and, I just have, for example, these are $10, love pop cards I mail out to, my clients to say happy birthday. These things, for $10, the response I get is just amazing, right? It's like totally amazing. So I do the low tech stuff, but I think the most important thing out of all these processes, whether it's, I would just say consistency, that you're just doing something, every single month, and that you're staying in contact, with your clients. And a lot of the CRMs nowadays can automate a lot of that stuff for you, which is amazing, right? So those are the things you definitely have to implement, but you still need to have the personal touch, right? So you're not so robotic.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's the whole thing. All right.
Awesome. Yeah, I think high level, this idea of being involved in the community, because that will continue to show up for you in ways you don't even expect, leading from a place of creating value versus closing the deal. And Donnie, I love that. Having consistency, which ultimately keeps facilitating and building the relationship over time, but leveraging technology, because maybe as humans, we're not sometimes the best at consistency. So let the tech kind of move that forward for you. All of these folks are great thought leaders on this topic. You can look at their production and see that they walk the walk. And I just appreciate all three of y'all being here today and kind of speaking to this. So thank you.